back to the Solitary Practice Podcast. I'm just going to dive right in today. I'm kind of all over the place, and I know that somebody is probably thinking she's normally all over the place. I'm really all over the place at this point. There has been a lot going on magically in the last week. So much so that instead of reading at work today, which is what I normally do whenever I have free time, I actually sat down and tried to make a list to try to figure out what I was and wasn't going to cover on this podcast episode. And then I decided, forget it. I'm just going to get in here and I'm going to go with it, and we're going to see where we end up. So this will be a surprise for everybody. Don't we all just love surprises? So one of the things that I do in my magical practice is I use it to make my life easier. My thought process behind that is if I am at all vaguely confident and I am not using those talents to make my life easier, why am I even practicing? That's kind of the whole point. Some people might be into the spiritual aspects and wanting to, I don't know, move up the realms or what have you. And some people may just want to commune with gods or goddesses, or maybe they want somebody to come fix all their problems. That seems pretty prevalent. I want to use it to make my life run smoother. I think that is probably the simplest and most useful way to use magic. You can do all of that other stuff, but if you are still struggling in your day-to-day life, why? Just why? So anyway, we had a number of things going on in the last week or so, and I just decided that it was easier to fix it so that I didn't have to deal with it, because ultimately we're all a little bit lazy. We don't really want to go through the rigmarole of doing all this manual labor if we don't have to do it. So that's kind of my, I guess, policy on magic. If it is not making my day-to-day, week-to-week life run smoother, making my house run smoother, benefiting myself or my family, I don't know that I would really even bother. I'm not looking to make my life more difficult. So I kind of let it work. And I guess there could be a, well, what spell did you use? Blah, 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 blah. Again, I didn't really. We're at the point now where if I'm just kind of annoyed by something, it goes and gets itself fixed. I don't have to tell it, it just knows. And case in point, there is a convention I used to attend very, very regularly, like every year, 4 days in November. It was a big thing. It's anytime I leave this place is a big thing because I'm never allowed off without an escort of some form, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to get out of here for 4 days used to be a big deal. And it was pretty labor intensive to plan it, because not only do you have to do all the mundane aspects of planning, but I have to do all the magical aspects of being off farm for 4 days. Because if you don't start planning that early, the land gets really, really disturbed, that you have just suddenly up and absconded to, like, states away. And I really don't want it to decide it needs to drag me back. So usually I have to set all of that stuff in place well in advance. And so I used to have this whole thing kind of mapped out for a process. And then I think the last year I went was 2016. So it's been about a decade, almost 9 years, close enough to a decade for me. I had not planned on attending this year. Circumstances have changed since the last time I attended, and it was not really going to be my thing. And long story short, we've had some on-farm changes, and it was put forth that it was felt that I should go and attend because now my youngest child has an interest in attending this event. What tiers want, tiers get. That's pretty much the rule in general. I mean, there's some small caveats, but generally what a tier wants, a tier gets. And one of my tiers wanted me to take my youngest child and go to this convention. So that's all well and good. The problem here is that the hotel blocks for this convention are usually completely full in about June. Like, as soon as they open, they book. There's no cancellations. You need a minor miracle, essentially, to find a hotel anywhere in the area. Sometimes I've had to stay about 20 minutes outside of that particular area to even find a place to stay. It is incredibly popular, massive number of attendees. It's definitely worth it, but it's complicated. If you are not sitting on top of those room blocks anywhere in a 50-mile radius when this thing opens, you're not getting a room. And it's been decided that we should attend this year. And we had this little decision show up 4 days before it opened. Now, in theory, there's always a few cancellations in hotels. I think anybody who's worked front desk in hotels is well aware of that. There's also, they hold a few rooms. Like, there's all those things. And if you understand that, you get it. My problem is that my tier had a very particular hotel in mind. They've been before with me. They like a particular hotel. It is their preferred hotel. And if I'm taking my youngest there, this is the hotel that I am meant to be staying at, apparently. It's like the best one or whatever. So the odds of getting in the favored hotel, which also happens to be within a stone's throw of the actual convention, basically it's zero. Even if a room opened there, it would close almost immediately. And I kind of knew that. Could I find a hotel? Absolutely. Like, I can make that happen. That's not a big deal. But now I've got a tier that wants a specific hotel room, and they've got specific room requirements too. I won't bore you with the details, but let me tell you, there's a bunch of specifics here. All because I took them with me once, which, lesson learned here, don't take them with you and let them have preferences, because they're going to come back to haunt you like a decade later. So anyway, I say, let's have a look. The room blocks are full. Call the hotel. Completely booked. No rooms available. Okay, back to the drawing board. Go back to the tier. Cannot get that hotel room. It's not available. We're going to have to go to a different hotel. Tier does not want to go to a different hotel. Tiers are very spoiled, generally speaking, for me, and I detest telling a tier they can't have what they want, particularly when it's kind of an inconsequential thing. So anyway, Tier is intensely disappointed. Tier does not like this at all. Tier wants to stay where they want to stay. Again, very, very spoiled. Has the whole plan all laid out in their head, and they definitely want to stay in this one particular spot. I don't know what to tell you. The tiers are difficult. So I go back to the drawing board the next morning. I think about this during the night and kind of contemplate the fact that my tier has a specific request. I don't tell my tiers no if I can avoid it. Now, there's sometimes they need to be told no, and there's like caveats to pretty much every rule, but in this particular instance, this is not something I would tell a tier no. This is something I would make sure that the tier got. It's a minor thing. I mean, we're talking about booking a hotel room here. This is not rocket science. Just they have very specific items that they would like, and my job is to make that happen. So I'm thinking about it, laying in bed, kind of contemplating it, and I'm a little annoyed because the tier wants it. The hotel clearly has no availability. I'm a bit miffed because now what am I going to do? I need to make this reservation in like the next 12 hours. So it's, we're going to have to get in transit here very shortly. So decisions need to be made. Something needs to be done. I decide that I will tackle that in the morning. I go to sleep. I get up in the morning. It's like 4:30, get chores done, toddle back into the house, start drying everything off by the fire because it's snowing here. I don't know where everybody else is, but here it has been snowing for the last 5 days. So there's snow everywhere. There was snow a week ago. We're in the winter wonderland portion of this program. I decide I'm going to flip open the laptop. I'm going to take one last crack at the Hotel du Jour. If I can't manage that, I'm going to come up with something better. That's my plan. I am moderately irritated, and that's kind of important because anytime I am moderately irritated or slightly displeased with something, it will fix itself. I have to be kind of careful that I don't legitimately get mad about something because then everything's going to get reworked. Long story short, flip the laptop open, put in the web address for the hotel that was requested, popped on there, check the dates. There's a room available for the exact dates I want. It meets all the requirements. I booked that thing so fast, called the hotel as soon as I got done with that and gave it a few minutes to kind of, process through the wonders of the internet. Confirmed everything, just making sure because, sometimes they overbook. No, we were good to go. So that's like a magical expenditure, but it's not really a spell. It's not anything formal. It's just basically, I don't like the way things are going. I think it needs to change. And so it moves. So we went out, we did the convention thing, and then we came back. Now, like I said, it's winter wonderland here. It's absolutely freezing. I don't think we've been above 20 degrees. Well, it's been a couple days now. Animals are not liking it. They do not want to stir from the barn, and occasionally you have to kick them out because they need to go outside and walk around. This is not a rest home for animals, although it is sometimes a geriatric ward here, but they need to go out, they need to walk around, they need some fresh air. It isn't popular, but once they get out there, they usually have a good time. We have a colt here. He saw snow for the first time. It was an absolute riot watching him try to figure out what to do with snow. So, it's not all bad. There's good things. But it's largely too cold to spend a great deal of time working outside right now. We're in that glorious in-between where we've come off preserving season and we're not yet into full snow removal season. And it's still hunting season, which means most of the men are gone during the day. I have to hang around. And so that makes it craft time. So we're going to take a little sojourn into craft time. If you think about it, you could probably turn anything magical. But these are a few of the fun little things that I've been up to in the last few days. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with paper beads. I know there's all sorts of fun, crafty magic, but I like paper beads. I don't use it too much anymore, but I went through a real phase with paper beads. For anybody who doesn't know what paper beads are, they are exactly what they sound like. They are beads made of paper. Generally speaking, you cut it into very long triangular strips and you roll them. You can dip them in a poly or glue them and they will, if you just put a little dot of Elmer's glue or something on the end, they'll just hold their shape. If you want them to be kind of waterproof, you could put them on a fish line and dip them in a poly and then swing them, and I'm doing it here, not that you can see them, but I'm doing the little motion that you do when you swing them, and then let them dry, and then they're kind of waterproof. It also makes them highly flammable. Keep that in mind. But the options for paper beads are really endless. They're an extremely versatile thing to use if you want to use it into your spellcraft somehow. You can scent them. You can change the colors of them. You can do the thickness of them. You can write on them, and when you roll the bead up, nobody can see it, or vice versa. You can write on them, roll the bead up, and it will look just like a random pattern, and they can still see the writing or the sigils or whatever you've put on it. Alternatively, you can take important pieces of paper. I don't know what you want to call it. So a wedding announcement, a birth announcement, an obituary. You could take these things, you can cut them, you can make beads out of them, and then you can use them for whatever it is that you're doing. And these beads, like everybody most commonly uses them for bracelets, but I've seen earrings, I've seen necklaces, I've seen tassels on bookmarks. I've seen them wrapped around the long shank of a key and used as a pendant on a necklace. The options are really pretty endless out there. Fringe decoration. I mean, you just got to get kind of creative with it, that's all. And then if you really want to step it to the next level, make your own paper. I like to make my own paper because then I can add in herbs, bug wings. Just trying to think anything you really want. You can get horsehair in there. You could grind, in theory, various things, and sprinkle that in there and make your paper. You can change the thickness. You could change the color. You can get very, very customized. I imagine you could even work hair in there if you really wanted to. I've never done hair, not human hair. I've done horse hair and cat hair. Cat whiskers doesn't have really good flexibility. You can do it, but it's not great. Dragonfly wings look lovely, but remember, you're going to cut this into a long, thin piece and roll it, so you're not really going to be able to see that, which is great if you want it to look perfectly normal, and not so hot if you're trying to look super occulty. From there, you can leave them plain. They get wet over time. They're going to mush up and biodegrade. You can, again, dip them in a poly coat, and when you're done with them, you can burn them. The poly will certainly make them burn. Paper will burn. Next thing you know, you've got some charred ash. So, paper beads. Love the paper beads. Every now and then I get on a paper bead kick. You can do some pretty things with them, and you don't have to use just the paper beads. There's a lady in town who does this, and again, we're old school here, so it's all, I guess, historical or heritage crafts are big around here. She does get like random lots of leftover beads, and she uses them when she makes beaded jewelry. So she will sometimes get regular beads and color coordinate them with her paper beads. She's the one I've seen make a lot of these keys. She's got a real thing for keys. It's kind of her little hang up. And she loves to take and make paper beads around those shafts on the keys and do pendants. But yeah, she's very much into it. I've seen her do a lot of different things. She has not really made her own paper. The other thing she uses is calendars. And I really hadn't thought about calendars, but she made some pretty nice beads out of calendars. And I've often wondered time, dates, astrological alignments. I could see all of that potentially being able to be bound up in some kind of paper beaded jewelry or tassel. Anyway, paper beads. That was one of my little projects I was getting a little behind. I made several. Nothing too fancy, nothing overtly magical, just happy stuff for the holidays. And now I'm on to rugs. So it's coming into the holiday season. We are big on the holidays here. And I say we, but usually I'm doing all of the legwork. But the family really, really, really loves the holidays. So I try to go all out and make them spectacular. So a lot of kitchen witchery, I think it would be more commonly called. A lot of cooking based stuff. They eat well here. It's basically we feast. Well, it's almost mid-November, so it'll be from now until sometime in January. At any point in time, people can stop by and they will be fed and hosted. It's very old school around here, so anybody can stop by at any point in time, and it's going to trigger the hospitality rules. And then I'm going to feed them and house them and basically keep them warm until they decide to leave. And I can't ask them to leave. They have to choose to leave. There are ways to get them out of the house, but try not to do that too, obviously. You do that too much, you get kind of a reputation. So anyway, long story short, we're moving into the holiday stuff. And so this year I've decided that one of my personal gifts that I'll be giving out, because we do a lot of handmade gifts here. This is not a commercially oriented kind of area. So it's handmade gifts. Usually food is it's a big thing. So I'm making rugs this year, and I'm making them 2.5-inch wide strips. If you can buy them pre-cut if you're really into it. They're called jelly rolls. And then anybody can Google jelly roll rug on YouTube and get yourself a nice tutorial. YouTube's an interesting thing. Yeah, very, very handy. It saves me a ton of time explaining stuff that my grandmother taught me years and years ago. But anyway, so I was making a jelly roll rug, Christmas themed, for one of my tiers, and I was looking at this rug and thinking about the potential for, well, magical activity. Basically, I'm giving this to a tier, and we all know I love my tiers dearly, I guess. So anyway, I was trying to think of how I could, I guess, add some extra oomph to this particular gift. I want it to basically just reek of joy and happiness, which I suppose could be considered strange, but hey, I don't know about everybody else, but sometimes the holidays are a very trying time, and we could just use a little love and happiness. So this will be this particular tier's first year attempting to host through a holiday season on their own. I'm not particularly worried. They've been trained well. They will do well. They are particularly worried, though. I think the anxiety of the forthcoming festivities is starting to hit. Kind of fun to watch. I remember when I was that young. So anyway, I've been working on this rug, and I was looking at it, and I was like, well, I could be putting herbs in the batting as I'm and binding it up. You're binding the rug. I could be picking colors. I could be picking patterns. There's a lot of stuff you could do. The other thing is it's a rug. Somebody's going to stand on it. You could talk to it about absorption through the feet and up through the system. There's a ton of things you could do with these rugs. I ended up picking colors that would foster the, I guess, happiness and joy that I wanted. I didn't end up putting any herbs in the batting. I was trying to make time, so I didn't do that this time, but I think in the next one I certainly will. There is an entirely good possibility I could write down the strips of batting. The batting is about 2 inches wide. It's white. a Sharpie, and you could do whatever you wanted right down through that batting. It's it's something like 30 feet long, so it would go nuts with it. You could do it repetitively. You get 3, 6, 9 times. I personally like the number 5, but whatever. But anyway, so there's options to what you could do with that, and I was thinking about magical rub. I guess it's kind of like a magic carpet. It's not really a carpet; it's a rug, but close enough for me. And at some point, I found that kind of humorous. So yeah, that was my craftiness this week. It was basically paper beads and rugs. Next week, I'll move back to. I'm working on a dress that will appear as though it is on fire when I'm done. Haven't finished it yet. I am doing the design and patterning all from scratch. So this is not going to be a fast project. I'm not in any rush. I don't need it for anything. But yeah, I had to end up taking all the hoop skirts and everything, and I think I have somewhere in excess of 1,000 yards of ruffled tulle at this point, and I had to kind of cram it all in a cabinet because the cats were just being merciless to it. So that covers crafts. What else has gone on? I guess the only other, I'm going to say pivotal, it's not really pivotal thing that I've been up to this week has been today. There has been a death. I oversee a lot of deaths. When something is dying, I usually get called in. And I say called in, it's not so much they're like, hey, come take care of the dying thing. Somebody will call me and say, hey, I don't think such and such is doing well. And then I either have to go there or, they send me a video or whatever. I sometimes miss the pre-internet days because I didn't get videos of dying things sent to me, but it is what it is. So anyway, yesterday, person contacted me. Their dog was not doing well. Sent me a video. Could have told them then that their dog was going to die, but honestly, Cassandra syndrome's a thing, and you can tell people, but they just will not believe you. So, strongly suggested they take the dog to the vet, etc., etc. They got an appointment for 7:30 this morning, took the dog in. The dog was in a bad way, and the kindest thing to do was put the dog down. So the dog ended up being put down. So we will be doing a burial tomorrow morning, breathtakingly early here. This dog is being transported over 3.5 hours to be buried here. It was a good dog, deserves it, so not too worried about that. I was exceptionally fond of that particular dog. But animals here are treated the same as people. In some ways, the animals are treated better than people. This dog didn't live here, but it did stay here periodically, so certainly don't mind sharing it with all the other dogs. There are different areas here for different animals. We have one area where horses get buried, one area where cows get buried. We got an area for the dogs. But anyway, the death toll thing is starting early. We go through death here a lot in the winter. Usually doesn't pick up in volume until late January, early February. Last year it started around mid-December. It was a pretty rough year. We had a high death count around here last year. I was kind of hoping that maybe because last year was high, this year would give it a break, but it doesn't look like that. With the dog dying today, it looks like it's just going to start picking up from here. These things usually come in threes, not always, but that's one. We'll see where we end up. I think we clocked in around 18 last year, so I'm kind of interested to see what the count will be this year. So, since this is getting underway, the first thing I usually do is start adding checks on all my tiers. Everybody's getting a watcher. I don't generally interfere with anything that is not a tier or have an immediate effect on a tier. Those I will watch kind of hard. I still might not interfere with it. There's a few that, I know I'm just not supposed to touch, but generally speaking, I want my tiers to live through the winter, so I'm going to focus on that. But I will be called in from time to time when animals or people die. And it's an interesting thing because when something is dying, it doesn't really always stay about the thing, the person, the animal that's dying. The living people get all caught up in themselves. And it becomes less about the transition for the dying one and more about the people and animals around you who are still living and what they go through. And it's easier sometimes to see things through the process of dying. than it is to deal with the living. I think I don't mind the dying process, but the living. The living make me crazy some days. Usually, they all have their sorrow and their moments of breakdown, and I don't get to do that because I still have to oversee everything. So, whereas some people can mourn for extended periods of time, that's not something that's on my schedule. And so I have to always keep going. And sometimes if you get an excessive mourner, very annoying. We have an excessive mourner right now. I actually got a phone call about them yesterday. We all appreciate the difficulties of having a spouse die. This one, though, is just taking it for all it's worth. So I had a call about that and what I thought could be done about it. These are full-grown adults, often older than me. There's nothing I can do about it. I have no idea how random people in the town seem to think that I'm going to have some odd way of intervening. I don't generally mess with other people's grief. That's a them thing. So, yeah, little death going on here in town. Let's see what else is going on. We've all probably seen government shutdown. There's been a lot of people deeply disturbed about SNAP benefits, Medicaid, and heat was a big one, mainly because it's snowing here right now. So the emergency heating plan the counties, at least here anyway, the counties administer it for the federal government. So there's been no heap assistance, which basically will buy firewood or fuel oil for the extremely low income. That's been a huge concern, probably more so here than the SNAP benefits. Most of us garden and we all know each other, so like we can kind of work out who needs food and all that stuff. The difficult part is people start getting creative when they don't have heat, so they try to find ways to heat their homes, which usually means a bunch of people burn their homes down. So that's always a concern. A, we live in the forest, and B, nobody wants anybody to burn their house down. Usually, there's pets and stuff inside. So I've had at least 3 phone calls, and one of them were some very, very nice, lovely people, but it was the longest phone call. I'm not much of a telephone person, and it just went on and on and on about how to feed the community and how to basically heat the people's houses when you don't know who they are. So that's on my list, and I can offer them some suggestions, but the bottom line is, I mean, I can find out who they are, but I can't tell them how I find out who they are. That'll just land me in hot water, so I have to kind of walk a fine line there. Because yes, you do want to know who's freezing and who's starving so that you can fix that. But you also, A, don't want to betray a confidence. B, you don't want people wondering how you knew. You should hear some of the suggestions as how people think I know. It's quite entertaining. But long story short, these are the kind of calls that I've had over the last week. I know exactly who the people are. I could ferret them out. It's not that difficult. But what I have to come up with is plausible reasons why I would know, particularly since I don't really venture out. I went through a phase when I was extremely prominent in the community. I had a job that was, well, very public facing. We're going to say very public facing. And so back then, it could be just kind of written off that I knew because I was out amongst the public all the time. But I am very much not in public life right now and actively avoid it whenever possible. Unfortunately, that means I no longer have a way to explain away how I know the answer. So I'm going to have to get a little bit more creative with that, but essentially I was able to kind of gently herd people toward the correct answers, and find some semi-plausible ways to at least get them started, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, so we're seeing about crafts and handling the local deaths and trying to keep people from burning their houses down and keep them fed. That's pretty much everything that happened this week. I kind of cringe to think what's going to happen next week and as we move closer into the holiday season. But yeah, so that's it for this week. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to share it with others. If you've got any questions or you just want to contact me, as always, you can do that through my website, that's solitarypractice.com. I appreciate your thoughts and your feedback. I appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next week.